It's your boy Luke, back for another NFL DFS video, this time for our Week 9 main slate fades and sleeper picks. The goal of this video is going to help you guys to avoid some of the chalk plays that I don't think end up performing that well this week, as well as targeting some of the people I think that are being a little bit overlooked, my sleeper picks. So without further ado, let's hop right into it for our strategy show for DraftKings this week. First off, for our fades, at number 3, we have Jamar Chase at $7,600. This matchup against the Browns is the main cause for concern here. The Browns run the ball more than anyone else in the NFL. They tend to dominate time of possession metrics against their opponents, and when they do so, their opponents aren't going to get much fantasy production. You're dealing with less plays, less opportunity overall, and for me, Jamar Chase, somebody who's seen a significant price hike of late as well, is going to be a fade at 8.1% ownership. Frankly, it's that entire offense as well. That's why at number 2, you see Joe Mixon at $7,100. He's also going to be somebody who we expect to be playing from behind. The Browns should win this game. They have a lot of pressure on them to do so, especially with this whole Odell Beckham Jr. saga. So for me, Joe Mixon probably going to have some of his opportunity squeezed because of the game script, also because of the time of possession numbers. So for him at $7,100 and over 10% ownership, he's a very clear fade. And next up, we have Kyler Murray at $7,900. So this matchup against the 49ers looks like a good one on paper, but both teams are effective running the ball. Both of them are effective at keeping the ball moving, keeping the clock moving. So this is also a game I expect to go a little bit lower scoring than people are giving it credit for. We also have the injury concern for Kyler Murray, obviously dealing with that shoulder injury, which has held him back slightly. He hasn't been quite himself. Has still put up some pretty decent numbers, but with this 49ers defense, you're dealing with a unit that's heavily underrated. They've lit up a lot of yards. They have lit up a lot of points at times this year, but they also have a lot of young bodies that are getting back to full health. You have Bosa out there on the edge, starting to look like he did a few years ago. You have a few of those young linebackers, a few young people in the secondary. So overall, Kyler Murray, a little bit of an overrated quarterback for me this week. Somebody I'll be fading at 8.2% ownership. And now for our sleeper picks. At number 3, we have Derek Carr at $5,900. He's somebody who's obviously dealing with quite a bit of emotional baggage this week, we'll say, with the whole Henry Ruggs situation. But for me, somebody who's clearly shown a lot of leadership this week, somebody who I think is going to be motivated to go out there and lead his team in this type of circumstance. He's playing against the Giants. It's a decent matchup. They obviously have a relatively good secondary, relatively good defense in general. But we've still seen some shootouts with them. I mean, obviously, their offense lets up a ton of turnovers. They tend to give up the ball on their own side of the field, which is going to help that Raiders offense conversely. So at $5,900, I like using them in stacks. A lot of it comes down to the stacking options as well. Obviously, with Henry Ruggs out of the mix, you're dealing with a lot more concentrated offense. The real targets are going to be Hunter Renfrow. You're going to have Bryan Edwards out there. Obviously, Darren Waller. You'll be able to sprinkle in people like Zay Jones, but that's about it. They're not going to have a ton of bodies out there. It's going to go from a 5-man rotation to closer to a 4-man rotation. And for me, for stacking, that makes things a lot more attractive. You're not having to take some of these fringe players at the dead minimum or anything like that. They're all relatively good priced because they're expecting Henry Ruggs to be in terms of the pricing algorithm. So $5,900, again with the stacking options, he becomes a very good sleeper pick. And next up, we have Marquise Brown at $6,000, somebody who was also featured in my core plays video. I really like this matchup against this Vikings team. It's a sneaky pick to go out there and shoot out. And for me, at 3.7% ownership, it's also an absolute steal in terms of leverage. I mean, I don't understand why people aren't on this guy. He's had a very good start to this year. Obviously, Lamar Jackson's had a lot to do with that. I would have expected him to be around 7.5% ownership, but perhaps even double-digit percent ownership. So for me, at that kind of price tag, becomes an absolute steal and somebody I'll be featuring in quite a few lineups, whether it's in a Lamar Jackson stack or just as a one-off by himself. But at number 1, our favorite sleeper play this week is quite a sleeper. He's at the dead minimum at running back. $4,000, that is Derek Gore, somebody who saw the first real usage all year last week in primetime. Pretty much surprised the world there. Nobody was playing him in Showdown. Went out there, got you over 11 touches, and was extremely impressive. And that's really where I'm taking a look at this year. Somebody who was very good in the touches he got. He was much more effective than somebody like a Darrell Williams on the ground. And as a result, I expect his workload to only grow. I mean, this is somebody who the announcers were saying was gaining the confidence of the coaches. They were talking about it in practice. They were using a lot of setup plays for him. And if that's the case, that means his workload is going to get bigger and bigger. So he had 11 touches last week. I have him projected right now for 16.5 touches between his rushes and his receiving usage. And for me at $4,000, that's enough to pay off that kind of price tag. I mean, this is a very good matchup against this Packers team. They're dealing with being without Aaron Rodgers. This is still over a 50-point over-under. And obviously the Chiefs are big favorites here now. Without Aaron Rodgers, the line ended up swaying the other way. So for me, Derek Gore at $4,000 with the kind of usage we expect could go out there, get you 16 to 20 fantasy points. And obviously at the bare minimum at running back, that would be a very nice value play. Also, not garnering that much ownership, only 5.5% ownership. And honestly, I think it comes in lower than that. I mean, the guys at the bare minimum, a lot of the casuals aren't even going to scroll that far. So for me, it's definitely somebody I'm using as a sleeper pick this week. That's all for our week 9 fades and sleeper picks. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments who you've got as your biggest fade this week, and of course your biggest sleeper pick. I always love to hear from you. Always love to get some debate going down there. And as always, really appreciate all of your support here on the channel. If you guys haven't already liked the video, if you haven't already gotten a chance to subscribe, make sure you guys go ahead and do so. We're going to be posting NFL content for all of the season going forward, our fades and sleepers, all of our main slate content, and of course, all of our showdown previews for all of those primetime slates. So make sure to subscribe so you guys don't miss any of that. If you guys are into golf content, I'm posting that on the channel every week. We also have UFC content for the major cards. So pretty much something for everybody out there. So good luck with all of your lineups this weekend, and until next time, see ya.